Hello everyone, Mike with Spray Jones coming to you with another video on spray foam insulation. This is part 2 of a 5-part series entitled Let's Learn Foam. In video number 1 we went over open and closed cell foam, and I would like you to go and watch that video if you're just tuning in for the very first time now. It'll bring you up to speed on the two types of foams, and in this video here today we're going to discuss which is the right product for you and for your application. Closed cell foam. We are going to concentrate the majority of the time on closed cell because it's the most versatile and has the most applications. So on the second part of this video we will get into the open cell. To define our terms, closed cell foam is usually going to be a medium density, meaning 2 pounds per cubic foot, anywhere from 1.8 to 2 pounds, 3 pounds per cubic foot. The cells are not interconnected very well, so that the percentage of cells are close to each other, thereby standalone, meaning it doesn't flow water, doesn't flow air, and it's a higher grade, higher quality product. Density in closed cell foam is determined by blowing agent and the amount of blowing agent that the chemist and the manufacturer designs the product to have. I didn't make it clear in the first video, but we do not get to decide the density. We cannot modify it. We buy a drum. It comes as a 2-pound foam or a 3-pound foam or a 4-pound foam. Most common foam used today in residential, commercial, industrial construction is going to be closed cell 2-pound foam. That's going to be 2 pounds per cubic foot. External roofing industry is going to be using a 3-pound density foam because they want the higher compressive strengths and they want the ultra smooth skin that a 3-pound foam offers them. 4-pound foam is going to be used in products like freezer panels, garage door panels, or standard or structurally insulated SIPS panels, where they are foam filled. And you can get foams that are into the 5 and 6 for all sorts of dashboards and manufacturing processes. So let's move on and discuss why would we be using 2 pound per cubic foot foam and what thicknesses and what would we place this onto. Usually we are going to start at a minimum installed thickness of 1 inch. 1 inch is the absolute bare minimum that we're going to be putting on. Why? It takes too much effort to put on a 1/2 inch. You'd have to skin it very, very thick, and there'd be not a lot of point in coming out and just putting on a 1/2 inch and leaving. So in most situations 1 inch is going to be the bare minimum that we place on any type of substrate. That would be, of course, the most expensive inch that you would ever receive, because all your overhead, all your labor, all your travel, all your expenses for the day are all tied up into putting that 1 inch of foam on. So what we try to do with people is give them a diminishing return amount of insulation, meaning any more insulation and you're probably going to be wasting money. I have a specific video on this called How Much Foam Do I Need?, where we go over 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 inches of foam and we show you the percentages of BTU retention at given inches. Most of the time people are going to be opting for a 2-inch application or a 3-inch application of closed cell foam. Most modern foams today, closed cell, require 1 pass at 2 inches and 2 passes at 3. This is due to the chemistry and how much product can go on at one time before it needs to cool. We are starting to see the emergence since the last 3 to 4 years of high build products that are designed to be placed on at 4 and 5-inch lifts, and that would be for high thickness counts where an architect or an engineer has called for a 4, 5, or 6-inch application. These can be done in 1 to 2 passes depending on thickness required. Most people today are going to be receiving between 2 and 3 inches, and that's going to be done at usually 2 or 1 pass. 1 inch can provide a lot of air sealing, a lot of insulation, a lot of vapor control is immediately dealt with at that first inch. We always want the first inch to be the sealing coat and or flash coat, if you will, if you're going thinner, and then after that we're going to build up the necessary thickness the second pass. So you can do 2 passes, 1 inch to build your 2 inches. You generally don't want to start trying to put on your second pass at a 1/2 inch. Why? You're just not getting a perfect high build of the chemistry. A lot of the foam is designed to be sprayed somewhere at the 1.5 to 2 inch per lift. So if you're going to be doing a 2-inch application, you're going to come out and you're going to install right up to that 2-inch mark in 1 pass at one time, and that's perfectly acceptable, and it's actually best for the product the in-place install density, because you're maxing out the blowing agent of what it's designed to do. Going beyond the 2-inch lift application per pass is going to cause problems, not in the first half an inch or even 3/4 of an inch, but when you start going 1 or even double, you go into a 4-inch application per pass, you're going to start seeing problems. And I've got a whole video on that where we discuss 5 failures on spray foam and what caused them, and you can find that in the video library. So let's take a look at what the applications for a 2-pound closed cell 2-inch or 3-inch application would be. What are the most common things that we see? Well, starting off, metal buildings, pre-engineered metal buildings where they've got metal framing, metal siding, metal girts. These are absolutely perfectly made for spray foam. Why? Because you're not going to have compression of the insulation. Bad insulation, in my opinion, should just about be outlawed when dealing with metal buildings. I know it's cheap. I know it comes as a package. It gets pinched between the girts and underneath where the purlins have got to go. But you know what? Modern materials here today, we can put the building shell up and then come in and do the 2 or the 3-inch application of closed cell on the inside of the building, and you've got just an amazing structural component to all of the fasteners and all of the structure. I've got dedicated metal building videos. Post frame structures, these are an absolute must with closed cell foam. Open cell does work well with them as well. If you're in a less temperate climate, like a climate that's more warm, it's not as cold and you don't need to be dealing with vapor barriers, then by all means go with an open cell foam in the post frames. But I really like closed cell foam in post frames. You get a really good structural component. Those buildings are already designed to have less lumber in them. I've said this before in my dedicated post frame videos. These buildings were never designed to be insulated, so when you are going to convert them into heated structures, it's great to have an all-in-one air vapor product that's adding immense structural support and has a high insulating value at very relative low thicknesses, and it's going to be impervious to water, it's going to be impervious to bugs, and it's just going to be an all-round good fit for multi-generations to come. Traditional framing, so this is what we deal with on new construction on houses and small commercial buildings, dentist office, lawyer offices, strip malls, CRU buildings, any type of mega mansion or home, any type of traditional frame structure, 2x6, 2x4, 2x8s, you name it. It's absolutely what we like to do. It's our bread and butter is to come in and have a home or a building built and then convert that building into modern, advanced engineer envelope by putting closed cell foam in and around the frame. We've got a whole dedicated video on that, Walls 1, 2, 3, Part 4, where we talk about doing the closed cell foam, doing the caulking, doing open cell foam. This is absolutely the best insulation. I have it in my home. Most of the places where I live, in the development that I'm in, a lot of the homes out here have closed cell foam in them. And for a while there, we were doing 20, 30 full home packages when there was a better balance in building materials and costing. We're not seeing as many full home packages nowadays just due to the cost of the spray foam, but we're seeing a lot of the key areas still getting done. Very large home that we did last year, many thousands of square feet. We put 13 sets of foam into that house. So really good way to if you're thinking about building a mega home, you've got to go spray foam. Why? You've got to just get the better product from the bones of the structure outward. Under slab, this has been an emerging market for the last 6 years. I want to see more of this done. Under slab is a key with closed cell foam. The reason being is that it takes a perfect profile of the rock. You're not dealing with seams like you are with rigid board. You can lay down an enormous amount of square footage, 2,000 to 3,000 square feet a day when you're clipping right. We did a 4,000 square foot outdoor slab on grade house in 4 days time, and that included getting up there, traveling. We arrived on a Monday, and by Thursday morning we were leaving 4,000 square feet sprayed, 2 inches thick, onto crushed rock, 3/4 diameter crushed rock that was all prepared for us. This is an absolute must. The reason being that I like this over rigid so much is because of the profile that this closed cell foam takes of the rock. It adheres. You don't have any wind uplift. You don't have any twisting. The guys can walk on it. They're not snapping it off and breaking it as they're pouring concrete, laying rebar, laying the in-floor piping and what have you. I believe this is the way of the future. The disadvantage to this system is just that it's very weather dependent. If you're outside in the open elements or you're down in a basement, it can't be wet, it can't be drenched, it can't be super cold, right? So, slab on grade is another one. It's very common to the concrete slabs. What I'm talking about, where you've got structural piles and thickened edged footings, or even frost walls, where you've got a structural element to what's going in the ground. These are rigid insulated usually, and again, same problems. They've got foam, frost upheave, lift. Insulations, so where the insulation is going laterally out away from the footing to cause frost to not get underneath the footings and lift. This is popular on thickened edge. This is awesome during the spring and summer months into the fall. This is a great way to go because, again, the rigid insulation is going to break up with spray foam. It isn't going to break up on backfill, and it can take a perfect profile of the contoured trenches that have to be dug to allow for thickened edge. The sloped surface can be a hassle sometimes to put the rigid insulation. The rigid insulation wants to move. You got to tape all the joints. You're disturbing the soil. You know, if a breeze comes up one day, it moves all of your insulation around. So closed cell foam is an absolute awesome way of doing structural grade and structural pile systems. Cinder block, brick, and stone basements. This is an absolute no-brainer. Where you've got a lot of mortar joints, and the pointing is not in very good condition. That means that the joints are starting to crack and the mortar in between them is starting to break apart. We've gone into cinder block basements that smelled and felt like a sewer. Ultra damp, ultra musty, ultra skunky smelling. We've gone in, got them dried out with a couple of fans, dehumidifiers, gone in, put 2 inches of closed cell foam in them, and they are immediately warm, dry, and sealed off. Any type of pour-in-place concrete is definite with spray foam. I've got a whole dedicated video on why putting fiberglass bad insulation inside basements that are in cold weather climates is a fail. A lot of air leakage, a lot of moisture, a lot of condensation problems with the thermal mass of the concrete getting cold, staying cold. The above grade parts especially can frost right up where you can visually see it. Condensation issues all the time with fiberglass. This is why adhered closed cell spray foam bonded onto the concrete eliminates this problem. I've had builders that have had non-stop envelope problems, failures in the basement, frosting up, water coming out of the baseboards, out of the carpet, out at the flooring levels. This immediately stops the problem and it never returns. Why? Because it's an air leakage issue and it's the concrete getting too cold, and the spray foam eliminates that. Adhere to the concrete. No warm air from inside can touch something cold enough to condense and cause problems. External in-ground is a must. The closed cell foam is rated for in-ground. It's not going to be absorbing moisture, so we're doing piping that's going in the ground, we're doing footings that's going in the ground, foundations, anything that's in ground and you need to have it insulated. Closed cell foam is the one and only product that you're going to be doing that with. Pipeline industry for years has been using foam saddles and foam pillows and foam breakers in the trenches to support and help the pipe along as they're laying things into the ground. So the longest stretch that I've ever done was a kilometer worth of piping, where it was for cattle drinker bowls, where the ranch was going to be spurring off with water and the heat to keep the water lines from freezing, and all of that was inside of a jacket, and the jacket needed to be insulated from closed cell foam, and that's the way that we did it. We sprayed right around it, and then it was backfilled into the trench. Crawl spaces and on the walls of crawl space and the floors of crawl spaces, this is an absolute. Again, just like spraying under slab, spraying over top of 3/4 crushed rock in crawl space. We've been doing this now for 6 years and it's had excellent results. People like it better than the Permalon liners. They like it better than just 6 mil polyethylene. Seamless, adhered onto the rock. People can walk on it. It's not something that you're going to want to take a lot of abuse on, but who's going down in their crawl space and driving go-karts around anyhow, right? So the closed cell foam adheres well if the crawl space has been prepped right, the rock has been tamped down right and leveled right, and it's not going to be settling, then the spray foam isn't going anywhere. Lay down a 2-inch application over top of the rock, wrap it up to the walls and into the joist stands, and you have a monolithic foam shell that is going to be warm, and you are going to notice a thermal difference over the Permalon liner, where you've actually now got 2 inches of insulation over the entire assembly of the floor. The crawl space is going to be as warm or warmer than a basement, so that's just win-win. Swimming pools are a must. Like if you're going to be having a swimming pool interior, like you're going to have a pool, indoor pool, or you're going to have an indoor hot tub and what have you, and you're going to have a high humidity environment, then absolutely closed cell foam all the way. I like open cell foam for some of these situations as well. They're not entirely bad, but when you're dealing with an ultra high humidity where the vapor drive to the outside is going to be very strong year round, then to me it's a no-brainer because of the water vapor permeance capabilities of the closed cell foam. And don't be afraid to put your thicknesses up thicker, 3 to 4 inches of foam. You got one chance to do this, and you don't need to have problems with being a little bit thin in spots. So up your thicknesses with closed cell foam, you're going to have a winning combination. We've done a number of pool rooms, a number of hot tub rooms, and they've all had 100% success when you introduce a really good caulking air seal package. Exterior of your building. If you are doing any type of retrofits where you have got a masonry wall, or you've just got an old home and you can only deal with insulating it from the exterior, pull the siding off, go into the cavity wall, into the stud wall, or maybe remove brick, or if it's on new construction, we've done on commercial buildings where they've got brick ties, we've gone with 3 inches of closed cell foam, and then they put the masonry wall up 1 inch in front of the spray foam. That's huge. Masonry industry has been using rigid insulation since almost its inception to insulate in the cavity, and it's a no-brainer because of the distress of the brick ties and causing air leakage within the envelope, that using a liquid applied closed cell foam on the outside of the wall will get everything sealed up. We really like it on retrofits. If you can't and won't open up the drywall or the paneling on the inside, then your exterior is your only other option, so you've got to have it walled off for overspray, and then you can move and have your insulation and your siding removed, and then put the closed cell foam in, close the wall back up, and then you've got a modern solution that is better than tomorrow. If you're dealing with low slope roofs, vaulted ceilings, this is an absolute game changer. I've got a 4-part series on non-vented roofs. I still get a joke, a laugh out of all the people that want to dispute the validity of this. The science is there, the testimonies are there. There's many people now that have actually gotten closed cell foam based on some of these videos and are testifying themselves in the comment section about how great it is and what it's working. So go watch the 4-part series on closed cell foam for low slope or vaulted. We call it non-vented roofing because there's no ventilation between the closed cell foam. It can be done in open cell, absolutely, but you've got to be, in my opinion, in the not so cold states down in the United States to really make total advantage of the open cell product. I won't get into any more of those details on this one. Bonus room spaces over garages, so where you have got bedroom or usable living space, habitable space, let's say, over top of a cold zone, cantilever over a garage. It extends out over top of a deck to the outside. These are absolutely needing to be done in closed cell foam. I've seen these built, batted. They've tried to use styrofoam and a number of different sheet products to try and seal them up. Every one of them has failed in time. We go in and do this in a 2-part system. We'll go to spray around the perimeter in step 1, then we'll have them sheeted, then we'll have come back, put the closed cell foam in between the floor system with that sheeting underneath, and then close it up. So it's got basically a double skin, so that all of the foam, the closed cell foam, is underneath the truss system, not intermixed inside of it, trying to insulate the ductwork. All the ductwork, all the plumbing, and all the wiring is above, inside the warm zone of the deck, and that way you're not having any issues. And I've got 0 callbacks on that type of a system since implementing it and using it exclusively. Backs of stairs for strength. I did a video called, I think it was like 5 parts, 5 areas in your home that you don't really think about that need spray foam. This is becoming a more emerging thing. Even recently I've had somebody ask us if we should be doing this. Yeah, absolutely. If you're not going to be interfering with where drywall is going to be going, or how you want to use the space, or how it's going to be looking to finish it off, yes, be putting 1 inch to 2 inches of closed cell foam on the backs of the stairs. It's going to lock everything together, and they are going to be rock solid for the life of the stairs. It just takes out the squeak, and it takes out the tiny little bit of movement. Now, I know most stairs are glued and screwed and all that sort of stuff, or professionally stapled and what have you, but they all start to squeak and move around over time. It's just a fact of life, and this just eliminates that from the equation. Cold climates. Folks, if you're in Alaska, if you're in Western Canada, closed cell foam is the choice for you over open cell foam. If you're going to be in ultra humid environments, you're in the Pacific Northwest, you're in Boston, you're in Maine, you're in Louisiana. If you are in the hurricane areas, if you are in the Gulf coasts, if you're in Florida, if you're in Louisiana, these are closed cell foam areas, in my opinion. The reason being is they are going to hold up structurally well to the storms of life, the nor'easters, the hurricanes, the high plow winds that you get in these areas, and the ultra high humidities, where you're going to be air conditioning and the temperatures are going to be flip-flopping from day to night, and just the general humidity that you're going to have in the air. Open renovations are what you want to see. Closed cell foam is not something that's being injected into walls. It can blow things apart. I've never been a big advocate on this. I've had a video for quite some time talked about should we be injecting into walls. You want to have things open. You want to be able to see where you're placing the spray foam, and it's just that you want to place it where it needs to be going. So that means old homes, 100, 200, 300 years old, not a problem. Go and retrofit them. We've done tons of homes that are built in the 60s, the 50s, the 40s, the 30s, the 70s, you name it, 2x4 walls, exclusively insulated them with closed cell foam. If I've got a wall open and it's 2x4, I'm going to put closed cell foam in it. Why? Because I can maximize the amount of insulation, the structural rigidity that's going to be added to the wall. It's going to be an all-in-one air vapor barrier, versus if I'm doing open cell foam in a 2x4 wall in a cold climate, then I'm still going to need to be using a vapor barrier, and that's what the open cell versus closed cell, it's what the closed cell offers. So that's the way that I would want to go that way, and that includes complex dormer roofs and bonus room ceilings, and where you've got turrets and all that sort of good stuff. These are all excellent areas where we can be putting in 2 or 3 or even 4 inches of closed cell foam, seal them up, and have them warm and dry for the life of the structure. Moving along to open cell foam. In North America, Canada, and the United States, if you're considering open cell foam, I think it should be a consideration for you first and foremost if you are in a region that does not require a vapor barrier. So, if you are needing 6 mil polyethylene or a secondary vapor barrier, either from the outside or on the inside, I think your primary product to choose from is closed cell, because closed cell carries the vapor diffusion in the density and nature of the cell structure, not just in the skin. Oh, the skin it isn't carrying. That's why we can shave the skin of open cell foam off, and we haven't changed the vapor barrier. So areas that really benefit well from open cell foam will be regions where you're not required to have it, so therefore there's just no incentive to go necessarily with a more expensive, higher density product. So if you're in the Carolinas or even parts of the Midwest, and you're below that vapor barrier line where your state, your county doesn't require it, then you can go ahead and why choose a more expensive product? The open cell foam predominantly is a less expensive product. There's way more mileage in it due to the density. And it's just a different kettle of fish. I mean, for metal buildings and post-frame construction and residential and commercial wood frame construction, it's an awesome product. It absolutely is. It sticks. It's an awesome sound attenuating insulation. But if you are going to be in areas that require a vapor barrier as a primary defense, then I'm going to say go with your closed cell. This product, open cell, is well suited for new construction. It was originally developed to be a spray-in-place alternative to fiberglass. And the reason being is that the advantages that open cell foam gives is primarily on lack of having to detail it differently. So there's no limitation on how thick and how quick that you can build it, because it's a steam blown foam. There's no limitations on building it too thick and having it crack or light on fire or do excessive exothermic heat damage to wiring and what have you. So there's no risks of having a newbie on the gun and putting in way too much too quickly and then causing problems. So you can build it as thick as you want. The second is you're not trying to detail it. You're not trying to place the foam at 1 or 2 inches. You're trying to fill the cavity up as much as possible, maybe just fill or overfill. You shave off the excess and then you move on to the next cavity. That's pretty doggone simple. For training, it's like, did you fill it? Did you not? shave off the excess and move on to the next one. If you've got excessively deep cavities, maybe a 2-foot deep cavity, and you only need 10 inches, well, then you shouldn't have to be shaving it at all. So it's an absolute speed thing. You can just go in, you can put the 10 inches on in maybe 2 passes and have your full thickness value, not have to worry about anything cracking, not having to do a cooling interval in between, and everybody is moving along quickly and happy with the results. This product is fabulous for floor systems where you've got a lot of piping, you've got open web connectors. We use it a lot for sound attenuating insulation in multi-family dwellings. So if you're having a basement suite that's going to be a rental suite, putting open cell foam in between the floors is just fabulous for sound. You can get some incredibly high STC sounds for sound transmission class. It's a representation of the overall assembly and how well it will flow sound through it. You can get an STC 50 rating, which is a very high rating, at just 4 inches thick of open cell foam with an open web floor truss system. So blind holes, deep cavities, deep corners, cantilever overhangs, areas that have a lot of obstructions, piping and ductwork, and areas that just aren't practical to easily come in and detail it out with closed cell foam because of the nature of when you had to put certain systems in. I like it for floors. If you've got a floor over a garage, or you've got a floor system that has got a lot of ductwork and wiring and plumbing intermixed with it, the high build nature, like open cell foam grows and expands 120 times what goes on in the liquid mass, not 25 times. So to get around piping and ducting is just an awesome way of putting in the low density foam. Plus you can rip it out with your bare hands if something goes wrong. Closed cell foam, you're having to cut apart and sawzall the floor assembly apart in order to get things changed. So with ducting and wires, this is a great way of crawling in all around them. We had a honeybee facility where the bee incubation room was in between structures, so it was a heated facility, but the lower level was going to be kept at a much, much higher temperature for the bees to incubate in, and they wanted insulation between the floor assemblies. Even though space above and to the left and to the right was insulated, they wanted this to be separated. So we went in with 6 inches of closed cell or open cell foam in between the floor assemblies. Worked fabulous because they had a lot of ducting, they had a lot of plumbing, they had a lot of wiring feeding the spaces above and beside, running the ductwork through. And I just told them, I said, this is going to be an absolute nightmare to try and detail this out with even 2 to 3 inches of closed cell, just due to the ducting being in our way and the pipes. So why don't we switch it up? Why don't we go with 6 inches? And the choice to do 6 inches versus 3 or 2 or 2 inches of closed or open cell is that it was going to take that much material to crawl in and around a lot of the ducts with how big they were and how low that they hung in the floor system. So that was the absolute right tool in the toolbox for that. I like cantilevers that are deep and complex with a lot of ducting. A lot of times the ducting has to go in before the insulation has because they need the space to run the trunk lines and what have you. Post the HVAC system going in, it can be very obstructive for us to get in there and place closed cell foam. So instead what we'll do is we'll switch up to open, and we'll fill the perimeters and the cavity completely full, encapsulate the ductwork, and then everything is warm. And we can build it up 6, 8, 10 inches of open cell foam very, very quickly, fill the whole entire cantilever, and then have a warm assembly. I like it around ductwork. Anytime that I'm encountering ductwork, the open cell takes out the tinniness, the rattle, it air seals it. So I've done this a lot for people that they want sound isolation between up and down levels. Whether you have a basement suite or not, you just want sound control. I wish I had done this to the floors in my home. I wasn't able to get in and do open cell foam before the drywallers came. But this is a great way of stiffening up the floor, stiffening up the open or solid floor joists, and then crawling in all around the ducting, air sealing it, because when you air seal, you control sound, because sound is carried on airwaves and air going through joints and construction styles. As soon as you stop the air from going through the floor assembly, then it's forced to go through the solid mass, and then you can improve the sound transmission class. Obstructed areas that just have limited access. We've all seen this before, where you've got a blind corner or a T corner that's just really deep and it's going to be hard. We had a shop that was built with 2x8s and 2x10s for the wall framing, and in the corners it was 8 inches deep, and you had a 3-inch slit between the two studs. So instead of trying to detail that out and know, did we get closed cell foam all the way to the back, and in the corners did we leave areas and pockets, we just said, no, we're just going to switch out to open cell, and we just completely fill, or nearly fill, just fill the entire cavity with a high rate of expanding open cell foam, and then we can detail that out with paint on vapor barrier. Or in a lot of cases, when you've got multiple skins and you've built up open cell foam very thick, in excess of 8 to 9 inches, you're already starting to build up enough vapor permeance that a lot of times it will handle the vapor drive just fine, because 98% of your water in a wall assembly is air leakage. So if you take care of the air leakage, you've taken care of the water. And that brings me up to my last really good anecdotal point on open cell. We had a situation where a builder called us up. They had a joist run where there was a lot of ducting, a lot of piping in there, and the Batten Poly guys had done just an atrocious job of hacking up their product. In fact, they were given an impossible task to try and go in there and put batting and put poly. So it was shredded up and in no good shape. It was all in ribbons, and they were having a lot of water problems, a lot of frosting, pipes freezing, and then that water dripping back down into this suite and causing problems. So they called us up and said, what can you do with it? And I said, well, we can't do anything with closed cell. We just absolutely can't, because you've got too many obstructions of ducting where we're going to have the same problem. How do we know that we get the foam in? So what we'll do is we'll switch to open cell. And the open cell allows us to get like a fine jet stream in, and then we use the high expansion, that 120 times the liquid mass, to like fill in and crawl in and push into all of the cavities that we'd otherwise have to technically place the foam with the others. So that did a very well efficient job. We got into all the tight spots, we crawled in all around the piping. Then once we had it back into where we needed, then we just continued to build it up excessively thick, and then we put a spray applied liquid coating over top of it just to help it out, give it an extra little oomph of vapor control. And to this day they haven't had any more issues, no more freezing pipes. The problem is 100% gone. So again, open cell is a tool in the toolbox. I know a lot of people in the United States are using it. There's nothing wrong with it. I think it has a place in construction, wood frame and steel construction. You just need to know what are the right areas, what's right for you. You're never generally going to go wrong if your pocketbook can afford the closed, but open is a wonderful, great solution, and it is the best product, the best cellular foam on the market for sound. So when you're trying to get sound between floors, sound between walls, even sound in roof assemblies, open cell is the way to go. So that's what we would be using. So I'm going to wrap it up here. This video is more than long enough already. If you've stayed this long, thank you. You're die hard on the Spray Jones content, and we will be coming to you with video number 3 in the series. How is it sprayed on? We're going to take a look at some details about how technically the foam is sprayed, the equipment that we're using, why the guns work the way that they do, what's the limitations, what are our techniques, what do we try to see, do's and don'ts of how we want to get projects detailed out to readily accept the type of foam that we're going to be using. So that's going to be on the next video. So stay tuned, leave a comment, like and subscribe, and I will see you in part 3.